For me, this is the perfect football game. It's fast and it has great play controls. Good blocking up front can really make a difference. Touchdown! And good work by defensive linemen can really make your job difficult. I seriously think the Tecmo Super Bowl for the Sega Genesis is the best football game on the system, and yeah, I know how significant that statement is. You see, the Sega Genesis was known for its sports games, at least it was back in the day. There were tons of football games released on this system, and admittedly I haven't played all of them yet, but I keep coming back to good old Tecmo Super Bowl. I really think that this is the underrated gem of the Sega Genesis. And shockingly enough, I actually think it's better than the NES version, which is a lot more famous. But let's look first at the other Genesis football games to see how well Tecmo Super Bowl holds up. Now, the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of 1990s football games will be the John Madden series. Madden 94 came out almost the same day as Tecmo Super Bowl and had a ton of media attention. If you go through the old video game magazines, you'll see reviewers heaping all sorts of praise on this game. This was apparently the first Madden game to include a battery backup option to save the stats, which is kind of odd when you think about it. And it came with a ton of teams. But the play control is lacking at best. The passing window option is nice, but it has nothing to do with what the coverage actually is like downfield. It's kind of deceiving. This guy looks like he's open, but then he's surrounded by tons of defenders. Now, when I run with Emmitt Smith, I can gain yards like there's nothing to it. He's one of the few players who runs at a decent speed. Everybody else in this game is slow and clunky. The play control is just awful, in my opinion. And frankly, I don't think that the rest of the series is much better. Madden 95 feels slow and awkward to me as well. Anyway, to give the series the benefit of the doubt, I gave Madden 98 a chance. This was the last one for the Sega Genesis. Honestly, this feels even worse to me than the earlier games. The problem is that it's so hard to see what's actually happening. There's so much focus on graphic details that it's really difficult to react in time. Now, I'm probably not giving the Madden games the right amount of credit, and we'll come back to each of them later for a more in-depth playthrough of each game. But seriously, I think that the Madden games in Genesis were really overrated. Joe Montana Football is usually cited as one of the best football games on the platform. In fact, a lot of people in the comments section have told me about how much they love it. It's similar to the Madden series. In fact, I think the Madden series stole the basic graphical concept from this game. However, it's a lot faster and much easier to control. This is an excellent game, but I don't think it's quite as good as Tecmo Super Bowl. See, the thing about Tecmo Super Bowl is that your players do what you want them to do when you want it. Sure, there is a difference between skilled players and guys who just aren't good enough. But the play control feels smooth and natural, not stiff and delayed. There are other good games on the platform, such as the NFL series. However, I found the camera angle changes on NFL 94 to be really distracting. NFL 95 is better, though it still feels a little sluggish to me. And of course, those games are missing the excellent soundtrack that Tecmo Super Bowl had. The more that I play it, the more that I love it, but how does it compare to the NES game? Well, one thing to keep in mind is that Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES was a pretty revolutionary game for its time. The fact that such a well-designed game had a battery save system was absolutely amazing. The play control is smooth and easy, and it's still fun to play even after almost 35 years. But it got a big splash largely because it was so much better than the competition, and that's the part that we tend to forget about. You can look at an earlier game like John Elway's Quarterback, for example. It's got play calls that look like Madden, sure. However, you have to push the button at the right time to give the ball to the right player. Everything is slow and awkward. Players dive in this really strange and delayed manner. It's kind of annoying. And the crazy thing is that the Elway game is actually one of the best football games on the NES. A lot of people remember NES play-action football fondly. I found that game to be even more frustrating. I haven't been able to figure out how to change the player I control. The diagonal camera angle makes everything a lot harder than it needs to be. Passing is also a nightmare since you have to move the receiver to where the ball was thrown. I honestly can't find any redeeming qualities about this game, and I apologize if you're a fan. However, NFL by LJN is clearly the worst football game on the NES. The players move like this is an Atari 2600 game. Play calling is simply impossible. I think there's a way to change the player you control, but I can't figure it out. And the game clock moves extremely slowly. This game is torture, pure and simple. Anyway, in comparison to these games, Tecmo Super Bowl was like something from a different planet. We had never seen the likes of it. And that's one of the reasons why this game sticks out so much in people's minds. If you were a football fan when it came out in December 1991, it was literally the best game on any platform. And yeah, I mean any platform. Compare it to, say, Tom Landry's strategy football for the PC. Well, there's honestly no comparison. Landry is barely playable. Micro League Football looks like garbage in comparison with Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES. Even Front Page Sports Football Pro 95, a game that I actually like, can't match Tecmo Super Bowl in terms of graphics and overall play control. Tecmo Super Bowl is simply amazing for that fact alone. It was more playable than a lot of the games that came after it. In fact, even though I might get in trouble for this, I honestly would rather play Tecmo Super Bowl than NFL 2K5. 2K5 looks and feels nice, but it takes forever to play a game. Tecmo Super Bowl is a game I can pick up and put down within 20 minutes, no questions asked. But then you've got the big question, is the NES or Genesis version better? The Genesis version certainly has better graphics, and is also clearly faster, though maybe just a little bit. Both games offer a lot of customizability. You can download tons of old seasons for the Genesis version just like you can for the NES. There are some frustrations with the Genesis version though. You seem to fumble a lot more than you should. The AI also seems just a little bit more difficult in the Genesis version. Overall though, I really think that the Genesis version of this game is better than the NES version. It's my current pick for the best football game of all time, and I'm serious about that. So what about the Super Nintendo version, you wonder? I'm just not a fan of this game. It's slower than the Genesis version and the graphics are kinda distracting. It's hard to describe, but the Super Nintendo version has play control that feels a lot more stiff. It's not an awful game, but it's also not quite as good as the one on Sega Genesis. As for the sequels, I think that they're both awful. Tecmo Super Bowl 2 on the Genesis might look a little bit better, but it doesn't play that way. The voice acting is awful. It's some Japanese guy speaking English. The play calling system is confusing. Tecmo Super Bowl 3 got rid of the voices. However, it also got rid of the music, which was a big mistake. I just don't like the graphics of these games, even though I guess they're technically better. The play control is a lot more stiff. It feels like Techmo was trying to make a serious game to compete with EA and the other companies. They should have just stuck with what worked. Anyway, all in all, the more basic game is the one that I keep going back to. I think that it's got the best passing system out of any Genesis football game. Running the ball also just feels more natural, and it's a lot easier to follow your blockers. I honestly don't understand why companies gave up on this camera angle. This is how football video games should be, in my opinion. Well, and there you have it. I really think that the Genesis version of Tecmo Super Bowl is the best on the platform. When it comes to football, I go to this game first. Every other game feels like a major step down.